Hello, bonjour, здравствуйте, assalamu alaikum, guten tag, ni hao, konnichiwa, hola. Big warm welcome to the Knitters Party podcast. My name is Megan, I'm your host. You can always find me on Instagram and Ravelry at Meg311yo. Please friend me there and follow my journey. I'm coming to you today from Cairo, Egypt, which is where I live with my husband. We're going to be here until September, so hopefully lots more Egyptian content to come. Cool. I want to give a big thanks out to all of my new subscribers. I've had about 150 new subscribers lately. And I just want to say a big thank you for, subscribing to my channel. I hope you enjoy the knitting content. This is a podcast for knitting, sometimes crochet, but just a yarn-related fiber podcast. Cool. I have a couple of finished objects today. First and foremost, starting with this lovely shawl here. This is my completed Stonecroft shawl by Judy Marples. It is knit out of Knit Picks Paragon. Knit Picks Paragon in the colorway Kenai. And I turned around looking for an extra little bit, but actually I was seriously playing yarn chicken when I decided to bind off the edge. I literally had about 2 feet of yarn left, and that was the end of it. 5 balls of this yarn, and I only had about 2 feet left. And I was actually planning to, if I needed extra yarn, I was actually planning to use the tails from when I had added a new ball in. I was literally expecting to have to add those back in and keep binding off a couple more rows. So I was seriously playing yarn chicken. I wanted to put this on to, I guess, show it off a little bit when it's on, but it's really hot, so I'll take it off and show you how it is. But I want to let you know it took me probably 5 minutes to try and get this to look good on my body. This is not an easy wear shawl. There's no 101 ways to wear this. It really takes a lot of sort of time to put it all together, and that's because of the shape. It is an asymmetrical triangle, but one side is significantly longer than the other. We'll talk about it, but just look at that finished product. I think it's absolutely stunning. It's huge, which is good because when I bound off, it was only about maybe 4 feet long, and it was barely coming around my neck and looking decent. So after I blocked it, it did turn out to be about 6 feet in wingspan and about 27 inches deep. I don't really know what those mean. I just took measurements because I noticed that it grew considerably. Anyway, it's absolutely beautiful. The Stonecroft shawl by Judy Marples. But look how much longer this side is. So this is the center point, and this other side goes all the way to here. So this is the side that you, this is like you're increasing on this side every time you do your row. This is only how long the other side is. So when you try to just put it around your neck like a regular triangle shawl, this end goes all the way down to the point, and this end stops really short. So there's no way to wear this as just a triangle shawl. I really think that it takes a little bit more effort put into really getting it going, I guess, and making sure that it looks decent on. But again, that's not a big deal. This was so much fun to knit. I've been knitting it for about a month now, only I started in Egypt. But I'm really happy to have it done. So if this is your first time, welcome. Hello, I've been talking about this for a long time. This is for my mother. She had asked me if I would knit her just a big giant shawl, and we picked this one out together. And we actually had a plan to knit one for her, and I was going to knit one for myself out of basically the same yarn, this Knit Picks Paragon, but I was going to use this colorway, which is Enchanted. I've been sort of obsessed with purple lately. I actually have a purple obsession. I love the color purple, which is surprising because my favorite color used to be orange and red, and sort of these very, very bright, hot colors. And so for me to really enjoy a cool color like this dark purple, I think is really nice. So yeah, I'm going to be making one of these for myself, inshallah, God willing, one day maybe it'll actually happen. But this was sort of a beast to knit. It was fun, and it literally took all 5 balls of yarn that I had allotted for it. But it was a fun knit. I suppose so, it was a fun knit, yeah. I liked the lace detail on the edge. It's not just a standard mesh. It actually has almost like a star pattern to it. Let me see if I can really stretch it out. There you go. you can see it has almost a star pattern to it. And it makes for a nice, interesting bit of lace. Like, it wasn't just standard mesh, and I really appreciated that. So you have two lace motifs. You have sort of this growing leaf right here, and then of course you have the open work lace, which is all nice, and then it's all just stockinette. It's really, really wonderful. I actually should have gleaned this before showing it on the podcast, because as soon as I washed it, the yarn sort of fuzzed up a little bit, and maybe it was how I washed it or how I laid it out to dry or something, but it did get a little bit fuzzy. I'll probably end up gleaning this before I give it to my mom, but maybe, we'll see. But this yarn was absolutely a dream to work with, this Knit Picks Paragon. I believe it's 50% merino wool, 25% baby alpaca, and 25% silk. And the silk especially means that this shawl is so like drapey, and I don't know, it's just beautiful. This was absolutely stunning to knit with. And when it's not so fuzzy, you can see that the stitch definition is just insane. You can see every single stitch. You can see every single piece of lace. It's very consistent and even. I think I might be doing a yarn review about this Knit Picks Paragon, because this was absolutely incredible. I would absolutely give it 5 out of 5 stars. So if you have watched some of my other yarn reviews, they're all just Knit Picks yarn reviews. But this one I probably will be doing, and I will be giving it full marks. It's a bit more expensive than your average Knit Picks yarn. I think this is $6.79 for a 50-gram ball. So it's not the cheapest, but when you're considering that you're getting alpaca and silk, I actually think that it's pretty worth the money. And if you have a special occasion coming up, your birthday or I don't know, like your anniversary for knitting or something, do something special for yourself. Get yourself some nice yarn, and this is certainly cheaper than Madeline Tosh or Malabrigo or something like that. And so if you have been looking for some semi-luxurious yarn but at a decent price, I highly recommend Knit Picks Paragon. Because look at this, it's just beautiful. All right, I could go on and on and on about this shawl, but I'm going to take it off because it's pretty warm. And I've been wearing it nonstop. And this is for my mom. I don't want it to get wrinkly. I don't want it to get too fuzzy or certainly pill. Oh my God, if it starts to like felt and pill, I'm gonna just die and maybe have to make the purple one for her. But she chose this color specifically for herself. So I don't want it to get ruined. I'll just rewash it and block it. Okay, about where I blocked it. So this is funny. When I was living in Michigan, I would block things on a carpet floor. So I would just spread it out as wide as it could go on a carpet floor and pin it into the carpet. If I didn't have carpet available, I would go to like a queen bed or like a large size bed and pin it right to the comforter. So here in Egypt, we have all parquet floors, which is all wood. There's not any carpet in the house. It's wood and tile throughout the entire apartment. Fine. So our bed, I'm not going to be pinning a wet piece of wool onto my mattress or onto my bed because, you know, I sleep there. I don't have time for it to just dry and wait for it to, you know, stop smelling like wool. Anyway, so my bed's off limits. We do have a spare room with two single mattresses, like so two twin size mattresses. And so I was thinking maybe I could block it on one of these twin size mattresses, but we don't actually have sheets or pillows or blankets or anything for them yet. And so I literally had like almost nowhere to block this out. And I really wanted to expand this lace because I wasn't able to finish as many repeats on this end is where you finish off. I wasn't able to finish as many repeats as the pattern called for just because I didn't have enough yarn. And so I had to bind off a bit early, but I needed to stretch this out and really block it out. And so anyway, I had to block my knitting on my yoga mat. And so I'm lucky that I brought my yoga mat. I guess I took a day, I'm not gonna lie, I don't do yoga that often. And so for me to take a day off of my yoga is not a big deal. I'm sorry if you can hear some beeping in the background. I have major construction that goes on literally 24/7 right outside my window. And so we have been woken up in the middle of the night by jackhammering at 3 a.m. We've been woken up by this little beep beep backing up of a truck at 3 a.m. So it is literally relentless, nonstop. Just try to ignore it. That's what we do. That's what my landlord tells me to do. Just ignore it. Anyway, I blocked this out on my yoga mat. It worked out fine, but I don't want to be destroying my yoga mat. So I think I'm going to be having to buy sheets and blankets for our spare room. My parents are coming to visit in a month anyway. I need it for them, but that's where I'm going to be blocking out all my yarn from now on is in our spare room. Okay, that was a lot for just one project. Sorry about it. I have a couple of other finished objects, the most exciting of which are my Hermione's Everyday Socks. Oh, I'm so happy. These Hermione's Everyday Socks are knit for my friend Lindsay. Again, she asked me for socks back in December. I started these socks back in December, and so for them to be finished now is a big feat. My episode last time I mentioned that I had found my sock knitting mojo. I don't know what happened. I've never liked knitting socks or really enjoyed it, but when I finish a sock, I feel accomplished. I feel like I can sort of take on the next pair of socks. And so I did that. I finished this. This is knit out of Malabrigo sock yarn in the colorway Wales Road. And this is 100% superwash merino, so there's no nylon in here. But considering that the black for the toes, heels, and cuffs is Knit Picks Capretta, which is an MCN merino cashmere nylon base, but it is absolutely not superwash, as I've learned from my other pairs of socks where I've used it for heels, toes, cuffs. Pop it in the washer and it felts right away. So these are hand wash only socks for my friend. I hope she abides by it. She asked me for socks, so I'm giving her socks. Yeah, so I finished them. Finally, they've been on the needles for 3 months. I was knitting these 2 at a time on some of my Knit Picks circular needles, and they're finished. They are a bit small for me, which is good because I'm knitting them for Lindsay, not for myself. And I think her feet are just a smidge smaller than mine. I think she's a size 8 foot and I'm like a 10. So they're tiny on me, which means they'll fit her perfectly and I won't keep them for myself. So mission accomplished. I do have some of the yarn left over as anticipated. So I will be making myself a pair. I think I'm gonna do just toe up socks. I'm not going to do contrasting heels, toes, and cuffs. I'm just going to knit toe up as high as I can, use as much of this yarn as possible because I love this yarn. It's absolutely stunning, beautiful colorway, and I don't want to have any left over. I am trying to do that where I can make projects that use literally every last little bit of yarn. And so if that means that, you know, I'm knitting a sweater and I have some yarn left over, maybe I'll make a pocket. You know, if I have some socks, I'll just knit them toe up so that I can use every last little bit of yarn that I can. That's all I need to do because I don't want to take home scraps of yarn with me from Egypt. I'm really hoping I can come home with projects instead of yarn. So that's for the best. My Lindsay's Everyday Socks. I'm sorry, I call them that. That's the name of my project on Ravelry is Lindsay's Everyday Socks, but they are of course Hermione's Everyday Socks by Erica Luder. Yeah, I knit socks. Hooray, hooray for me. Good. And so my last finished object was something that I just needed to have because I needed it. Anyway, I'm just gonna get right into it. I made a donut for your hair, like a hair donut, so that you can make those perfect circular buns. I knit this out of just some acrylic yarn that I had picked up here in Cairo at my, I don't even think I can call it a local yarn store. It's like a little crafting and notion store where they have buttons, yarn, trims, like trims for clothes and whatnot, things of the like. Anyway, I did purchase this yarn and I had no clue what to do with it. And I had previously made a yarn or a donut, a hair donut out of a sock. So what you do is you basically cut the toes off the sock that maybe has a hole in it, some socks you're not using again, but that are clean. You don't want to use a dirty, nasty smelling sock. You cut the toes off and you roll it up all the way up to the cuff. It works best with tube socks because sometimes the heel can get bulbous and get in the way, which is exactly what happened to me. So I had made a sock donut, cut off the toes, I had rolled it all up, but the heel was so bulbous that it made it so that I couldn't easily get my hair around it. It didn't look right, it wasn't holding its shape, everything like that. So I'm sitting here thinking, what am I gonna do? Because I like to wear my hair up in a bun. I think it's pretty. It's great for that second day when you haven't washed your hair. You need to wear it up, so this is what you do. So I thought about it and I said, of course I can knit myself a hair donut. So I'm not going to be like releasing this pattern on Ravelry, but if you're interested, I basically cast on, this is worsted weight yarn. I cast on 27 stitches onto DPNs and I just knit for like 8 inches. So I just knit a big tube just stockinette knitting for 8 inches. I did make a stretchy cast on so that it would, you know, be able to stretch a little bit. Like, you know, I don't need it to stretch a lot, but I wanted it to be malleable. So I cast on 27 stitches, I knit 8 inches in our tube, and then I rolled that up as tightly as I could. And then I just attached my stitches. I basically picked up a stitch along the purl side, like, so the purl side is actually the right side, but I picked up a purl there, and then I basically did a 3 needle bind off so that I, you know, knit the purl with the stitch on my needle and bound off essentially. And you can see that it creates a tiny little ridge here, but when it's in your hair, it's not noticeable. And the point of this is that, like, you put your hair in it and then you twist it and you make it so that your hair goes into this bun and creates that perfect circular shape. If you've never done it, check out a YouTube video. I am by no means a hair bun expert. I just knew that I could knit one and I wanted one, and so I knit one. And that's that. 27 stitches of worsted weight yarn, just knit it in a long tube. The longer your tube, the thicker this is going to be, but don't forget you need space for your hair. And so don't make it too thick. Like, you wouldn't want a hair donut that's this big, because when it's in your hair, it might be out to here. This makes a huge hair bun. I think it could have easily done 20 stitches and it would probably be the perfect size, but I did 27 and it's a-okay. Give it a try, experiment a little bit, see what you can do. If you think I really need to put this, this pattern onto Ravelry, I probably could. We'll see. I'll make another couple of them and see if they're any good, see if they're useful, or see if I can make a cleaner, like, little bind off edge so that I don't get literally this, like, ridge here. I'll have to see. But I was really happy and proud of myself for coming up with a good solution, because I needed a hair donut. So that's that. All right, that's all for my finished objects. I am going to talk about my works in progress next, so stick with me. Cool. So my first work in progress is using yarn that you have seen the last couple of episodes. I am using this Ancient Arts yarn, BFL, 100% BFL, in the colorway Alpine Meadows. And I had previously tried to knit socks with this. I was making the Cobble Socks by Ruth Brash. I decided to rip it out. It wasn't going to work. I had re-knit the yarn like 3 times because I had made, you know, one size and the gauge was all off. It was huge. It was absolutely gaping. And so I ripped it out and cast them on again in a smaller size. Ripped it out, cast it on a 3rd time in a smaller size. Knit the body of the sock only to realize I hated it. I couldn't handle it. And so I ripped that out as well. And rather than re-knitting this yarn for, I think, the 5th time it would have been, I just decided to say, fuck it, and I put it into a little mini skein. I will not be using this yarn. This is 5 times knit over, and you can see where it's still really wobbly, all these like little places where the stitches haven't relaxed out a little bit yet. I don't know what to do with this little tiny mini skein. I'm probably just gonna keep it and never do anything with it. It looks pretty like this. Maybe I'll put it into a little jar and have a decorative yarn bowl one day. I'm not that girl. I don't think I'm gonna have decorative yarn bowls. Maybe if I knit the bowl itself and then put yarn into it, that would be pretty cool. We'll see. So instead of continuing with the Cobble Socks, I decided to just try a completely different pattern, and I made, this is like one hoe of the hoe parade that I have today. I decided to make a fingerless mitt. So this is the Mermaid Scales pattern, Mermaid Scales Fingerless Gloves by Lena Matheson. And look at the cool pattern it has. I love the scales look. And actually, it's funny that I was clearly inspired by the Cobble Socks by Ruth Brash, because in the Cobble Socks, you sort of have this same idea of where you've picked up yarn and sort of carried it along so that you can see it. It's not exactly a stitch. But I figured that this pattern might work a little bit better, and I was right, and so I was really happy with that. A couple of things about the pattern. First and foremost, I got this pattern because I follow a few Facebook groups. There we go. I follow a couple of knitting Facebook groups, and one of the designers, the designer Lena Matheson, posted into this group, and she said, hey, you know, I've just released all my mermaid scales patterns. She has fingerless gloves, socks, a cowl, a scarf. She's got a couple of different patterns all using this really pretty mermaid scale design, this stitch, right? So she said, if you buy one now, I'm going to give you one for free. So just purchase one on Ravelry, message me, tell me which one you want for free, and I'll give it to you. And so I was like, absolutely. So I picked up the fingerless mitt pattern, and I think I got the cowl pattern for free. Anyway, I was inspired by this Facebook group, and she was really smart to have posted on there. I'm not sure how many other people bought it, but I did. So I started knitting the pattern, and it's knit flat for a fingerless mitt, and I hated that, so I just changed it up to be knitting in the round. Her pattern did not have like a thumb gusset. It was basically just a hole for your thumb, and so there was just a hole, you know, all the way down for the thumb area. That's just not how I like my fingerless mitts. So I modified it to be knit in the round, which was a really easy modification. I added a thumb gusset, cast off when I thought I had enough stitches, and just kept going with the pattern. I like some of the elements. The problem I have with this is the same problem I had with those socks. This yarn is like gaping. Like, look how much room is in between my hand and this thing. Look how much I can like pinch it and fold it over to where it actually fits like nicely. So I have so much extra friggin' fabric here that I don't want. I don't need it. I don't like it. And I'm mad because this yarn is just useless. This yarn is absolutely useless. The gauge is never right. It was absolutely huge for my cobble socks, like literally to the point where I had to cast on the smallest size for women. And I have a wide foot size US 10. Like, I am not a small footed human being right here. So I'm just like super peeved because I'm basically, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to keep this one fingerless mitt, but I'm going to cast on another pair of fingerless mitts. Like, I'm going to be making 2 more fingerless mitts with a significant decrease in the number of stitches. I don't remember how many stitches I cast on. Look at that. Are you joking? Like, I don't need this much room. And I did a regular bind off. I didn't do a stretchy bind off because I knew that it was going to be a smidge too big. So I did a regular bind off, and I have like, I could put like both of my, I literally can. I can put both my hands in here and still have gaping room. This is a joke. The pattern is fine. The pattern is written to gauge and it's no problem. It's written for fingering yarn, fingering weight yarn, no problem. But like, this yarn is so stupid and busted. I'm mad about this. I paid a lot of money for this too. I bought this yarn at River City Yarns in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. The same one that the grocery girls like talk about all the time. And I bought 2 skeins of it. So I have this one and I have another one. We'll talk about that in my next work in progress, my next hoe. So anyway, I am going to be casting on a brand new pair of these fingerless mitts because I love the pattern. I actually think it works well with the yarn. I think I will be making a ribbed palm for the next one, but I'm definitely going to be decreasing the number of stitches that I have. I'm so done with this stupid yarn. This is all wasted. This whole fingerless mitt is completely wasted. Like, I've wasted half the skein of yarn almost. I shouldn't have to do this. Ancient Arts Fiber. I'm never buying from you again. I'm so sorry about that. I think they have beautiful colorways, but unpractical. This is for a giant. You know, like the Jolly Green Giant could wear these friggin' fingerless mitts. I'd be happy about it. So that's that. That's my first work in progress, my first hoe, but this is like 1/3 of a finished object because this is just the prototype, I guess. Maybe I'll see if it's my husband and I can give them to him. But he might have like a wool sensitivity. I'm not sure about it because this is scratchy too. It's not even a nice merino. This is BFL. I'm just so mad about this yarn. What can I do? So this is my first work in progress, my first hoe. My second hoe, my next work in progress is knit out of the sister yarn. So this is also Ancient Arts yarn. This is their BFL base. Here we go. And this is 100% Blue Face Leicester fingering sock yarn. And this is the colorway Garden Gnomes and Pink Flamingos. And yes, that's what I paid for it. That is real Canadian currency right there. $32 for this BFL yarn. 32 Canadian dollars. I am getting 437 yards, which is quite a lot. You know, that's a nice skein of yarn. I like this colorway, but this colorway is one of those ones that looks different in different lighting. So when I had this in the skein, I think I showed it last time, I had this in the skein, it was beautiful, bright pinks, you know, nice greens, some little bit of yellow and brown in there. I decided to cake this up one night so that I could start on my next, you know, work in progress. And at night, in artificial light, this literally looks like vomit. Like, it literally looks like you drank Pepto-Bismol to help your indigestion, but you just vomited it all up. It's got like browns and yellows and oranges and a lot of pink. This was like the ugliest colorway when I skeined it up at night. During the day, it looks completely different. It looks pretty. I get the garden gnomes and pink flamingos. You know, I'm living the dream. But at night, it like changes color. And so, I don't know. I'm just so disappointed with this yarn. Between these two skeins, I've paid 64 Canadian dollars, which is like 50 US. I've paid like $50 for yarn I don't like. This is why I stick to my, you know, gem tone colorways or, so saturated tones or tonals. I don't love variegated yarns because I end up with vomit or I end up with yarn I literally can't use for anything. So what can I do? Anyway, knowing that this yarn was giving me huge gauge, I decided to cast on another pair of cobble socks using this same yarn, different colorway. And I'm actually really happy with it. I have a hoe. So I've got my first sock here of the cobble socks by Ruth Brash. And the cobble sock pattern is really cool. You can see that it gives, you sort of wrap the yarn around a little bit without giving too much information. And as Ruth put it on her podcast, she basically said, paraphrasing here again, that this pattern is great for variegated yarn because it gives every colorway its chance to shine. You can show off every color in the variegation for it. And I think it's really cool. So knowing that I didn't get good gauge with my other BFL yarn, I decided to cast on again the smallest size in this, using the same yarn, different colorway, and it's too small. It's really small. Okay, it fits me. I'm going to keep it because Lord knows I'm not going to reknit this whole sock, but it's very tight. I also made a couple of other modifications that maybe did affect the tension, specifically on the bottom of the foot. So, again, not giving away too much information because this is a paid for pattern. There are a couple of like slipped stitches on the front pattern. And so when I was knitting my cobble sock the first time, the bottom of the sock is just stockinette. And I was noticing that the bottom of the sock was longer than the top of the sock. So, you know, you're knitting your tube and the bottom of the sock was out to here, the top of the sock was out to here. And it was because you're slipping stitches on the top half and not on the bottom half. So to try and get them to be the same length, I did like an eye of partridge on the bottom of the foot so that I would be slipping stitches on the bottom as well as the top. And so this is like a modified eye of partridge because I wanted it to be the same number of rows as the pattern repeat on the top of the sock. But it did make it so that the top and bottom of the sock are the same length. There wasn't one that was longer than the other. However, I definitely think it affected my gauge because when my first sock knit out of the green yarn was so big, so gaping, I cast on the smallest size and it was fine. This time around, it's quite tight against my foot. I'm hoping it'll relax just a little bit with blocking. I'm not too worried about it. I like a tight sock. And I don't think it's going to be a problem. But anyway, I'm excited about this sock. I'd actually think that it looks pretty nice. And it doesn't look like vomit until nighttime comes. So I'll just be wearing these during the day only. And if I wear them at night, I will make sure that I wear tall boots to go with them. And that is that. The nice thing is because it's a little bit tight, when I wear it around my foot, these stitches really open up and create like little crystal balls. I don't know, that's what I get out of it. Like when you open it up and they sort of get circular, the pattern goes like a little ball. I really think that they're like crystal balls a little bit. And I think that is so cool because I am like all into magic and like, you know, these sorts of things. I really want to believe that magic is real. And so maybe I'll call these my crystal ball socks because they're super cool and they stretch out a little bit. when you wear them, and I think it's nice. So I'm happy with this. This is like the tallest sock I've ever made too, and I'm sure you sock knitters out there are laughing at this because this is not the tallest sock in the world, of course, but this is really tall for me. Normally my socks come to about here, and that's enough. That's enough. I can wear them in my shoes and I don't need them peeking out. I don't need them halfway up my calf, especially because I have wide calves, and unless you're gonna increase stitches around the calf, I don't want to be doing anything fancy, you know, and so that's that. I did use the heel that is in the pattern, which is just a standard short row heel. They are toe-up socks. And I think they turned out pretty well. I don't mind picking up wraps. I think it looks fine. It may not be the cleanest, but that could just be my workmanship there. I think it's okay. So I think they're pretty nice. I actually think that this colorway could be better labeled as fruitcake. Because doesn't this look sort of like a fruitcake color? You've got the cherries, you've got the green cherries, the yellow cherries. What other fruit is in a fruitcake? I know that there's just green and red cherries, maraschino cherries. Pineapple? Is that what the yellow is? So I get garden gnome and pink flamingo, but I actually get fruitcake more. I think fruitcake is a better colorway because fruitcake is one of those things that is so hit or miss for people. You love it or you hate it. I hate it. And that is about how I'm feeling about this BFL yarn. So, Ancient Arts, you do it again. Fine colorway when it's in the skein, when it works up in, you know, when you ball it up or cake it up. Looks pretty bad, but it makes something pretty. And I'm happy that I'm finally making these cobble socks because I was really sad that I had to just completely undo my last cobble sock with the other yarn, and so I was happy to have this one. That's it. Good. So those are my two works in progress. I'm sorry, those are my two half objects, hose. I have one more work in progress that I'm actually the most excited about. This is the one that I'm having the most fun knitting on. And this is, oof, I hate when it's like not working well. Okay, this is the Emiliana shawl by Lisa Haynes, H-A-N-N-E-S. Lisa Haynes. This is the Emiliana shawl. It is a mosaic knitting shawl. I'm only on the first color, of course. Mosaic knitting, and I'm having fun with this. I don't like working with black yarn, but this one is okay because I'm using pretty large needles so I can see my stitches. But you'll notice there's an interesting stitch pattern here that is really fun to watch it progress. And it's really nice when it comes out. And I think when I use my second color of yarn, it's really going to show a lot better. This thing is pretty big already, considering that I have about 30 more stitches to increase before I start the mosaic knitting part. I'll add a picture here so that final product looks like. But I am using my Egyptian cotton yarn that I picked up here in Cairo, black and white, no colorways. This is, let me show you the yarn label. There's not a lot of information. It basically just says the name of the company, how many grams, just 100 grams, but it doesn't show how many yards or meters are in here. I don't know if there's an approximation. There's not. I mean, this is like, it's just some cotton yarn that I picked up off the street. I hope I have enough. If I don't, I can always pick up more. This was pretty cheap. Like I said last time, 40 pounds for a skein, and this is 100% Egyptian cotton. So I'm happy to have some real cotton yarn made in Egypt. And yeah, colorway is black and white. So this is about as high contrast as it gets. And the mosaic band that comes in it, this is a shawl, by the way. The mosaic band that comes in it is a really cool geometric shape, and it's like a nice play between the black and the white. I'm really excited to see how it comes out. Originally, I was thinking about giving this to my sister because not only is she vegan, and so she wouldn't wear wool, and so anything that I knit for her must be cotton or acrylic or bamboo, just non-animal fiber. Totally fine, and even then, where better to get cotton yarn than when you're in Egypt, right? But I know she also really loves the colors black and white. She loves neutrals. This is very much so her style. So I started with thinking that this would be for my sister. And now I don't know. I actually think maybe my mother-in-law would really like it because she also really likes, you know, sort of clean lines, black and white, like maybe, I'm not sure. I might keep it for myself. I'm not sure. I'll have to finish it and then see what it says to me. So this is going to speak to me and this is going to tell me whether or not it needs to be for my sister, for myself, for my mother-in-law, maybe for my mom. I don't know, but I might want to keep it for myself because it's going to be really pretty. Even though I have another project that I'm going to be making for myself by the same designer, the mosaic knitting sort of thing, she's really popular or like well known for it. So this Lisa Haynes, she's got a lot of really awesome patterns. And so I'm making my own mosaic knitting pattern out of these two, the Madeleine Tosh green and this Oreo speckled color here. So that might be next. But I wanted to try out this, and I love the little stitch pattern in there. And when that's knit in the white as well, you'll see it really well. And I think it's going to be good. So this is my last work in progress. Hopefully next time I'll have the mosaic band done so that you can see it. I think this is going to be one of the prettiest things I've ever knit. So I have high expectations for this project. Oh boy, I should lower them now, huh? I have really high expectations for this project, but I think it's going to be nice. A little bit about the yarn. It is not a soft cotton. This is very fibrous. It isn't awesome to work with. I can only do a couple of rows at a time, and then I have to sort of stop or take a break or wash my hands or something, warm them up, anything. It's not the easiest thing to work with, but I'm getting through it, and I think I'm going to wash this literally with fabric softener to try and soften it up a little bit. It is cotton too. I could just throw it in the wash, you know, at a medium temperature, throw in a ton of fabric softener and just hope that it softens up a little bit. I also hope that it's going to be stretchy enough. Because it's cotton, it doesn't have the elasticity that wool has or something like that. And my cast on edge, or how the pattern is written, you basically slip every first stitch of the row, and that makes a very rigid selvage edge basically. And so I can stretch it a little bit, but it doesn't stretch out a lot. And so I'm not sure how much this is going to grow when I block it out, but we'll see. It is also going to be an asymmetrical triangle, so I hope it's easier to wear than my Stonecraft shawl. There's a bunch of unknowns in here, but you know what? That's what makes it such an exciting project, is I'm like, oh, okay, if it's not fantastic, if it's not fabulous, if it doesn't look great, I will keep it for myself and I'll be happy because I am the most knitworthy person I know. I appreciate what I do. I appreciate all the work that goes into it, all the color choices. I mean, I know how long it takes and what goes into making something like this. I have a couple of other people that are extremely knitworthy, but I don't know if my sister is, so we'll see. And I've been making a lot of baby things for her, and she's pregnant right now. She's due in May. Oh my god, I'm gonna be in Egypt. I'm gonna miss it. Anyway, I wanted to make something for her, not for her baby. So I don't know, I think there's a lot, it takes a lot of work to have a baby, and so something nice as a gift to her might be nice. That's it. So those are all the knitting issue things that I have going on the needles. I did want to talk a little bit next about my dream knitting, and then a little bit about the podcast that I've been watching, because there are so many cool ones out there, and if you don't know about these ones, maybe you can find out. So the first thing in my dream knitting catalog is the Angela Easy Trendy Cardigan by Vicky Chan. Actually a crocheted cardigan, super oversized, and it's really pretty. I think I'm going to knit it out of this white cotton yarn. The model in the pattern also is wearing a bright white cardigan, and I think it looks really great. I wouldn't do black because I hate knitting and crocheting with black yarn, can't see it. And then the other colors available to me are pastel, which I just don't wear. So I'm thinking about a white cardigan. I don't know how many skeins of yarn I would need, or if I would have to order them special, because the little place where I got this You can tell they're used to selling one skein at a time for small single skein projects. And so I didn't see 8 or 9 skeins of white yarn just there. So I'm not sure if I can just pick it up at the store or if I'll have him order it for me, but I'm definitely planning to knit an easy trendy cardigan by Lisa Chan. Cool, dude. Vicky Chan. Whatever. I'm over it. And then so that's my first one. The next thing that I'm excited about knitting is a cowl knit out of these 2 yarns. So these are both Malabrigo Rios in the colorways Sunset and Archangel, again, not sure. These are worsted weight yarns, and I've been looking on Ravelry for a pattern that uses 2 colors of worsted weight yarn where I can use up the whole skein. And of course, there's nothing that I really love. The striped cowl that I had made my mother-in-law, also using this Malabrigo yarn, no, I'm sorry, it was a different yarn that I used. But that said that it used both skeins of yarn completely, but it only used about half of each skein. And I was sort of peeved about that because I really wanted it to use the whole skein. So I'm thinking about actually designing my own cowl, sort of like a sunset cowl, where it's going to be a long cowl that you can wrap around twice if you want, and sort of do maybe an ombre effect. I'm not sure how well that would work, but I'm thinking about designing my own cowl using these 2 yarns because I haven't found anything on Ravelry that I love, and I need these 2 to work together. And they're worsted weight, so what can you make with just 2 skeins? You can't really make a shawl, you can't really make, a hat doesn't use 2 full skeins, mittens, same thing. So I'm just trying to figure out the best way to use these, and I think a worsted weight cowl is the way to go. So I'm not sure exactly what I'll be doing with it, but I think I want to do some sort of ombre, like faded cowl using these 2. I just want to make sure that I use every last little bit of yarn. That's it. That's my priority. Cool. So those are my dream knitting things. As for the podcast that I have been watching, there are 3 or 4 that I want to mention. First and foremost, the Mean Girls Knit. That is one of my favorite podcasts. Mean Girls Knit, there are 2 sisters based out of like roughly Seattle area. They're in Washington. I don't remember exactly where, but they are just hilarious and they're funny, and they knit also some really fun projects. It's not just, you know, the same beautiful Joji Locatelli. It's not all fades, things that you're seeing on all these other podcasts. They knit a lot of Stephen West. They knit with a lot of crazy bright colors, tons of Madeline Tosh colors. I really admire their work and just the fun that they have with knitting. They don't weave in their ends. They are just like a cool podcast, like a really fun podcast. So definitely check out the Mean Girls Knit. Another podcast that I've been really big on lately that I recently discovered is the Budget Knitter podcast. This guy, first of all, he's a male knitter, which is awesome in the first place. He's based in Vegas, and he knits with a lot of budget yarns. So Red Heart and Lion Brand. He works with a lot of Karen cakes. Really fun style. He's got a great personality, and I like what he does for his knitting show. Right now, he's got a knit-along going on for the Flax Sweater by Tin Can Knits, and he is just knitting this sweater like a beast. And he's got all these like pretty colorways going along with it. I actually think that the Budget Knitter is a pretty fantastic podcast, so definitely check him out. He knits, he crochets, he dyes yarn. Like, this guy is really talented, and he's got a fun podcast, most importantly. I also just started watching the Dog Star Makecast, which is a husband and wife duo, and I say makecast because it's not just about knitting. They do own a yarn company. I believe it's called Dog Star Knits, is the yarn company, available on Etsy, I want to say, but I'm not sure if they're dyeing yarn currently. But they knit, they crochet, the wife does paper making, and so she, not paper making, but paper card crafting, so she makes like really beautiful cards. They just have all sorts of fun things, and of course, like you know, a couple after my own heart, they are home brewers, so they make their own beer and mead, and they drink on their podcast. I just think that they have a lot of fun with it, and they're both really talented people. So check out the Dog Star Makecast, which is pretty fun. And then the last one that I have been watching religiously is the Coffee, Yarn, and Dinosaurs podcast. This is Ruth Brash, the designer behind the Cobble Socks and the Almost Erin socks that I also test knit for her a few months back. She's a really talented, also yarn dyer, pattern maker, just a knitter, very talented knitter in general. And she also has an interesting podcast. Sometimes she'll knit with really budget yarns. Sometimes she'll hand dye her own yarns. She makes things for trade shows and for herself, of course, gifts for others. And she just is a really, like a true person, a real good person. And her podcast is very interesting. So the Coffee, Yarn, and Dinosaurs podcast, absolutely check it out. Also, their family is converting a bus into a tiny home. What? And so you get like these updates every time she podcasts. She gives these updates like, oh yeah, we just ripped out the floors in our bus and we're like completely redoing it. Oh yeah, we knocked down all the windows and have like boarded them up for something more like sturdy and stuff. It's really interesting if you've ever thought about like tiny homes, or if you love those shows on HGTV, things like that. Her life is really interesting. And so I just can't get enough. I can't get enough. So those are the podcasts that I've been watching religiously. That's it. Yeah. All right. A little tiny Egypt update. Last I saw you, it was my birthday, and I may have mentioned that I was going to get a tattoo the following day, and I did. So first and foremost, this is my lovely new tattoo. It is the crescent moon with a crystal sort of growing out of it. And I'm sure I'm going to get people asking, oh, what's the significance behind it? Things like this. I'm a firm believer that a tattoo is just an expression of what you like in life. And so as much as I want this to be, oh, I believe in magic and, you know, my crystals have healing powers and I really believe that they are a good force in my life and that they can channel my energy. And, you know, the way that you charge crystals is to place them in the full moon, this, that, the other. I mean, of course, I could attribute significance to this, but really I just thought it was a bomb design. I thought it was absolutely beautiful, and it just shows, like, for me, it's more important to have a tattoo that is just about my personality, something that I can just enjoy and reminds me of sort of being in the moment, my mindfulness, and reminds me to sort of look up into the sky every now and again and realize that I am this tiny dot on this planet floating through space. You know what I mean? Like, I like thinking about all these existential things. And so this isn't necessarily the most, like, you know, meaningful tattoo, but I don't think it has to be. I also have a tattoo of the constellation Orion with like the northern lights behind it. And that's just because I love the constellation Orion. I love astronomy. I love, you know, the northern lights. I just think that natural phenomena are really incredible. And I think crystals are a natural phenomena that's absolutely incredible. You know, the constellation of the stars, the northern lights. I mean, these are things that I just find interesting and I love, and it's just really pretty. So I got a new tattoo here in Egypt, and I just love it, but I'm also probably still in that honeymoon stage where I'm like, oh, but look, you know, I got it 2 weeks ago, hooray! But it healed nicely and everything like that. Cool. In addition to that, I have some exciting news on my job front. So I mentioned I have been teaching English here in Cairo. I'm not going to say which school I work for, but it's a pretty well-known school, and they offer a really nice curriculum. I've been teaching now for 3 weeks, and I had my first observation with my manager. So she came into my class and she watched, you know, my teaching style and how the class ran and everything. And so my feedback, I was sort of expecting like, oh, my students weren't as talkative today, like maybe, you know, they think I talk too much, this and that, what have you. She called me and she was like, you know what, Megan, like, we thought you were one of the outstanding teachers at our school. We actually want you to be a part of our, like, we have some sort of a thing going on. Students from Ain Shams University, which is a very famous university in Egypt. It's the second oldest in Cairo, I want to say, and it's been around forever. They're having a little convention for Ain Shams students, and they're basically running free demo lessons, trying to get new students into the school and trying to get our reputation out around Cairo. So she wants me to do one of the demonstration lessons and basically give a free lesson, a promotional lesson to some students at Ain Shams University, which is incredible, fantastic. I've been teaching for 2 weeks at this point, and she invited me to like be a demonstration teacher and to show off what our school does and who we are and everything like that. And so I was absolutely flattered, completely like humbled by this experience, and I am just so excited. So on Sunday this week, I am going to be giving a demonstration lesson to some awesome students from Ain Shams University, and I couldn't be more excited. I couldn't be happier. So that's that. I also have some visitors on the horizon. My parents are coming to visit at the end of March, and I'm really excited to take them around Cairo and show them why I love Egypt and show them why this is such an important country in my life. And so I'm excited for them to try it out. They're a little nervous. They've never been to a developing nation. They've never been to a Muslim nation. And so I commend them for sort of stepping outside their comfort zone and trying something new. But when is there a better time to visit Egypt than when your daughter lives there, speaks the language fluently, like 80%, like 90%. Yeah. Anyway, what a better time to visit Egypt than when your daughter lives there and can get you by, and there's not a ton of tourism right now. I'm excited for my parents to come. That's it. Okay, I've talked on for way too long. Thank you for making it all this way, if you have. I definitely, request for you to go on Ravelry, go on Instagram, add me as a friend there, see my day-to-day life on Ravelry, or on Instagram, I'm sorry, at Meg311yo, and that's it. Thank you for joining me. I will see you next time. Ma salama. Bye-bye from Cairo.